Thanks everybody again for joining. Catherine and I are the co-chairs of the Women in Economics APPAM community, which was founded last summer and is intended to bring researchers together who can talk about issues about being a woman or gender minority in economics, as well as research about gender issues in economics, and just create a space for us to chat and network and find mentors and find mentees. So what we're going to do today is talk about the value of networking and mentoring and finding good mentors for mostly economists, but not only academic economists. We are very interested in, representing people who work outside of academia. So we have a broad group of people speaking today. So I will finish introducing myself, I guess, and then turn it over to Catherine. So in addition to being the co-chair of the Women in Economics community, I am a newly associate professor of economics at University of Colorado, Denver. Thank you. And I am currently on sabbatical visiting the Hamilton Project at Brookings in DC. So Catherine, why don't you introduce yourself next?
Of course.
Anything I forgot.
Yeah, hey, also the way that this is going to go is we're going to talk amongst ourselves, kind of for you, answer some questions, some basic questions about the importance of networking and mentoring. And then we are going to open it up for questions where you could basically turn on your camera, open your mic, and raise your hand, and we can call on people for questions, or you can just put them directly in the chat and Chloe and I can DJ questions. As co-chairs of the community, technically Chloe and I are the host and Jacoba and Lucy are our guests, but of course you could ask questions out of, any four of us. That's allowed. I am Catherine Ann Edwards. I'm a labor economist. I went to Wisconsin. I worked at RAND for 6.5 years. I just quit and went out on my own as an independent consultant, where I kind of am like my own one-woman think tank, which is a thing that you can do. And I'm also a columnist for Bloomberg and pretty politically policy connected sometimes, very infrequently. But I can talk about that. And I think, Lucy and Jacoba, I think y'all should introduce yourselves better than me giving one. I mean, I will say that I was going to introduce Jacoba as the Beyonce of the economics profession, just because I know she loves it. But Jacoba, why don't you go first?
Listen, I was thinking about that. My name is Jacoba Williams. Notice how I wore yellow, right? I have kind of trying to look in style like Beyonce. I am the Beyonce of economics. So no, I'm an applied microeconomist. I got my PhD from LSU, but I also went to Xavier undergrad, woohoo, HBCUs. I do a lot of research related to racism, which is kind of scary to some extent to talk about in the econ field, because people are like, racism, what is that? And I'm like, oh, it's something that exists. And
well, yes, surely you mean racial animosity.
Exactly, racial animosity. No, I'm like racism. Racism is true. And I found unique ways of quantifying racism in the economy. And I basically look at how that affects Black people in the South. Why? Because I'm a Southerner. I'm from New Orleans. That's where the accent comes from. If I didn't have this raspy voice, I don't know what's going on with my voice. It's weird. But I've worked a few places, few too many, Clemson University, Economic Policy Institute, RAND Corporation, and now I'm at American University, and I am going through my mid-tenure review right now, and I'm excited about it.
All right, Lucy.
All right, so Jacoba is a really tough act to follow, but I'm going to try. So I'm Lucy Schmidt. I'm an economist. I work on the social safety net, primarily anti-poverty programs. I'm a full professor at Smith College, and I've been there 2 years. Before that, I was at Williams College for 19 years. So I've done a bunch of mentoring. I've written a bunch of tenure letters. I know that's something that people want to talk about. I also am first gen, and I maintain a Twitter list of first generation economists. So if people are interested in chatting with me about that, or about advising undergrads and trying to bring a more diverse group of economists into the pipeline at the undergraduate level, that's something that I'm pretty passionate about as well.
Can you clarify first gen?
Sure, first gen college graduate. So the first person in my family to go and get an undergraduate degree. So there's currently a Twitter list of hundreds of people who identify either as being first gen college or having a non-traditional path. And I've been very like loose in letting people sort of self-identify sort of in that area. But I think when I was in college, first gen wasn't a thing, right? There was no recognition of the fact that someone who didn't have parents who went to college might have additional challenges. And I'm sure many of you have seen the work that Anna Stansbury has been doing about the economics profession and how many like economics PhDs have parents who are PhDs, right? So I think for those of us who get PhDs, it's even a more like rarefied air where we're sort of trying to figure out like what is this crazy system that we've gotten ourselves into and how does it work? So
Yes,
Well,
go ahead.
Okay, so we have some questions prepared for y'all in the Zoom. You know, if you have a question, you can put it in the chat, or eventually we'll open it up. But you know, to start, this is networking and mentoring. So let's start with networking. I think we should all answer this question. How has your professional network been helpful to your career? What role do you think your network served?
I can start because I have ADHD. So if I don't start, I'm going to forget what the question is. How about that? How have they served me? They've been a place of peace, to be totally honest with you. So I'm very big. Anyone who knows me, I'm very big on like health, physical health, mental health, all of that stuff. And I think that having people who have experienced what you've experienced, be able to guide you, to be able to tell you, yes, stand up for yourself here. No, let the a-holes be a-holes, is a beautiful thing. And I think it's because you learn what battle to fight and what battle to not fight. Certain things just aren't worth talking about. Not only that, sometimes as well, when you're getting a PhD, a lot of times, at least for me, I wasn't that sure of myself. So I wasn't similar to Lucy. My parents had been to college, but they hadn't gone to grad school, right? They knew nothing about economics. So it was this weird space I was trying to navigate and just understand what it was. And I had a lot of insecurity when I was in grad school. I'm a very confident person in general, but was very insecure. And so I think that for me, being able to talk to people outside after I've gotten my PhD, to be able to say, hey, I'm running this regression, like, does this make sense? Hey, can you look at my slides? Hey, what do you think about this idea? Just being able to have a group of people to do that with that are in the profession and sometimes not in a profession, it really just helps me be more confident as a person, more self-aware. And again, it just helps my mental health. So for me, that's what they've given me. They've really given me a place of peace.
Yeah, I'll just chime in on that. I have similar feelings about the mentoring I've gotten. So at this point, I've been out of grad school for a long time. So, you know, right after grad school, I would rely on you know, my PhD committee and people I met in grad school. I like to think of it as if I've kind of put together over the years a portfolio of mentors. You know, because one person can't serve all the roles you need in a mentor, right? So you can think of like mentors in terms of being in different like institutions, right? So you know, it's good to have a mentor in your institution who can sort of help you figure out like the weird quirks of your particular institution. It's also really good to have people outside of your institution who can not be involved in any of the decisions that are being made about your career, who can sort of give you advice from the outside. And then like Jacoba was saying, I think that there's different roles that people play. Like it's really important to have a cheerleader. It's probably important to have someone you can talk to about econometrics questions if you're an applied person. It's probably good to have someone that you can ask. Like, service requests are going to come your way if you're a woman in a male-dominated field, especially if you're a woman of color. You're going to get lots of service requests, right? So the question is, what can you say no to? What can't you say no to? So having someone who sort of fills that category, who can be your kind of no club. I have one more category. Do you need help like prioritizing research tasks and like staying on schedule, like having someone who can sort of fill that category? So I think the key is like one person is not going to be able to do all of these things. So when you're thinking about coming up with a team of mentors, you really want to sort of create this portfolio of different people who can fill different roles for you.
Great. I will add my perspective to this, mostly on networking. I think I also echo what Jacoba said about sort of having a a community. I think that's been one of the most important things for me about the networking that I've done, is forming a post grad school community for myself, because I think, as we all know, it's pretty easy, if you're lucky at least, to have a good community of fellow grad students when you're going through it, but then you're kicked out into the real world and that automatic peer group disappears. So being super intentional about creating a new network was really helpful for me, just to keep me, excited and engaged in the profession, especially outside of my own department, because you may have like one or two people in your department who you feel like a kindred spirit to, but that's not that many. And so thinking about expanding your group beyond just your department, I think has been really helpful for me and has played a big role in my career, basically.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a common theme, is that networking and mentoring is so much about confidence and community and, jobs. I will say, for my part, I have no idea what I'm doing. And this profession is very weird to me. And the economics profession is just so strange. So many parts of it are even stranger than I would like. Even being in it for a while, I'm like, that's what we're doing. So it's very helpful to have a network to be like, hey, I can do this, right? Like I can say this, or I can, to bounce ideas off of people. Even a professional is great. And then I think the network is so key for jobs. We're prepped in grad school of like, you go through the market and you could apply through Joe and then you go for these jobs. But like, I think maybe even after that, it doesn't really ever work like that. It really does. It really is about the network and the people and the jobs that could be a good fit for you. So yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, we're talking about it in a very like sort of positive social sense, that it's useful to have a network, but in sort of just the practical for your career, it is very useful to have a network. It is so I like to tell this story where I went to econ grad school instead of going to law school because I thought it meant I wouldn't have to network. And that is not true. I feel like being a successful economist is a lot about who you know and getting your work out there in front of people who can give you good feedback and help uplift your work. So there's a lot of benefits beyond just your, personal mental well-being in the profession to networking as well.
Well, question from the chat, and then also what we were going to get to next, which is, how do you find people? How do you find your people? Is a great question. I'll just say it. I found a lot of my people like at the APPAM happy hour, and would like stalk people's sessions to be like, that's a young person with a paper that sounds interesting, and then like go up and meet them and introduce myself. I don't think we should end there. I think other people, now I'm like, how else did you make friends, Catherine? So other people take over, and then I'll think of like a other way to that I made friends.
I think the thing that's really tricky about this is I think many of us don't have a ton of self-confidence, and I think many of us are introverts. So for me, like my definition of hell is going up to someone and like cold introducing myself at a cocktail reception at like still 20 years into this profession. Like I can't do it. It makes me like sweat and be nervous. So I think part of it is thinking ahead, like being proactive, because I will also say like APPAM is for those of us who are doing economics and care about policy issues, it's a really, really great professional home with lots of fabulous people. I am never going to be the person who's going to be comfortable like going up to people cold at the APPAM cocktail reception, even though people would be really nice if you did. Like I can't do it. So thinking strategically about who are the people whose work I think is great, right? And trying to figure out, how do I meet the people who are doing work that I think is great? And that makes it seem less like I'm trying to make friends, right? Even though I am, but more like I think I'm going to connect with someone because like their work is really, really cool and really, really important. So I think that means like, scouting out the conference agenda in advance and figuring out who's there, whose work you think is really great, sending them an email like, I'm going to be at the conference, do you want to grab a coffee? Or organizing a session for like a regional meeting where you're pulling together like your research and then research of other people, both junior and senior, that you think melds well with yours. Like those are really, really great ways to meet people. And then just following up with those people after you meet them. It was really great to meet you. I hope I see you again soon. Here's this paper you might like. I think for me, those have been the ways of making connections that feel the most organic. And a lot of my current co-authors I've met that way, from sort of connecting over the work at various types of conferences.
And I'll jump in, I'll say too, the way in which I built my network was 2 ways: presenting and fellowships. So one big thing that I think that a lot of people don't do, Lucy, totally agree. I'm extroverted, a little bit too extroverted, which is why I usually hide at conferences, because I'm the person that'll like talk your head off, and I need to not be that person. So usually you won't find me at conferences, you'll find me presenting and that's it. But I said it to say, when you present, especially as a grad student, people are going to come and talk to you. Listen, we even if we're introverts, we love to talk about research.
Oh my
If
God.
people in the
Sorry.
audience,
Sorry.
oh no,
Sorry.
mine did the same thing.
FEMA is testing the emergency alert
Yeah.
system.
I
No,
got
mine
it
literally-
too.
Okay.
Yeah,
Jesus.
no, mine just did it a minute ago, and I was like, "What? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
what's going on here?" Yeah, it kind of freaked me out. I forgot. You're fine. But I said it to say, if you present, first of all, it shows a lot of strength, getting up, especially as a grad student, in front of other economists and presenting your work. And I started presenting in my 3rd year at SEA, Southern Economic Association Conference. My first network of people came from that conference. It literally came from me having errors on my slide, if I'm being totally honest, right? But confident enough to go up there and try to do it. And I had another economist pull me to the side and say, "Hey, listen, let's go have lunch. I have other people that are here. I want you to talk to other people in the profession, because I can see you're doing good work, but I also can see you need a little guidance as well." And so I said it to say, like, if you present, people will come and talk to you after the session. There's never been a time I've ever presented anywhere and no one has come talk to me. There's going to be multiple people talking to you. So you can kind of like get to understand people there. The second way is through fellowships. So like I did a C-SWEP almost every summer. They have different fellowships and like internships that you can actually join. My mentor right now, who I talk to probably like 3 or 4 times a year, comes from the Boston Fed, and that comes from a C-SWEP. That comes from me presenting there. That comes from me working with him on his research, my research. And now, like, I did that maybe 6 years ago. We still talk every year, multiple times a year. How did I build a friendship network? Just go out and party. Yeah. Like, I think even though we're talking about a network, understand that you should have an econ network, but you should also have a non-econ network as well. And so like one thing that I do right now, I'm very big into football. The Saints are going to play this Sunday, right? I know where the Saints bars are in DC. So guess what I do? I go there by myself. I sit at the bar. Guess what's going to happen? People are going to talk to you, because there's going to be other people there by themselves who also have a commonality. And now, like, it may be a thing where I need a network of economists, but I also need a network of non-economists to talk about how economists are crazy people, right? So you need a balanced life, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I will say, if Lucy's comment about like emailing people who are research kind of cousins almost and have to do things that you do well, that doesn't always result in a hit. Like I've emailed people who have not emailed me back, or have emailed people who have said things like, not at this time, and they maybe I aimed too high, or they were too busy, or I just hit them at a bad time. But like, you should take that as like, truly it's a blessing in disguise. If you email someone and they're not friendly, like, well, thank God you didn't go up to them at a conference. So
let me add on to what I said on there. So I think the flip side of that is some people are jerks, right? And in that case, you're better off not talking to them. Some people are just really busy, right? So I think, I think you put things out there in the same way you throw your research out there, and it will hit eventually, but it might not hit every single time, and it might not hit the first place that you put it. But I think even if someone doesn't respond, imagine you send a paper to someone, so, like, this is something that's related to what you're working on. I think you might find it interesting. I'd love to talk about it. If they don't respond, at least they saw your name, and at least they saw that you're working on that topic. And then down the road, if they get one of your papers to review, or if someone asks them to write a tenure letter for you, like, they will know who you are. So I think even if it doesn't result in a hit immediately, it is still worth getting your name out there and being proactive about those things.
Yeah, I agree. I have had pretty good success with the cold emails, so I would certainly encourage everybody to do it. And yeah, sometimes you don't get a hit, but that's fine. It's not about you. And other things that I did, because I am also, like Lucy, not an extrovert and do not like to talk to people that I do not know. So having the like commitment devices of forcing myself to talk to people I don't know because I've pre-planned it was really valuable. So other things that I did are take advantage of the fact that you may have some invites that you can bring people to where you are, and be super strategic about that. Like, so for your seminar series, if you're in academia, and some non-academic places too. So being super thoughtful about how you use those invites. And I really like, kind of Lucy, how you were describing. I literally wrote a list of like, here are the people who are doing kind of like the really exciting research in a similar area as me, and trying to find ways to meet them, like look ahead of time at conferences I'm going to, are they there? Invite them to come to give a seminar at Denver, like, you know, using all of those opportunities. I also cold emailed people offering to give seminars at places, and that was very successful. So that's definitely something that I think is worth trying, because places love free seminar visits, that they don't have to pay. So the idea is basically you reach out to a place and you say like, I'm already going to be in the area for either personal stuff or for a different work trip. Like, do you have a slot open in your seminar series and maybe I could present in it? And I had really good luck with that. And I heavily leaned on the people that I met in the job market to do that, actually. So one of my advisors described the job market as like a coming out party for economists, which I don't think I totally appreciated it until I was on the other side. But places that I interviewed with and like had a good positive experience with, I use those connections to like go give a talk or just, you know, meet up at a conference, or, you know, I use those as places, or like as a way of forming my network. Even though they didn't give me an offer, like it, you know, again, it's not really anything about you. It's just the way that the market shakes out. You meet a lot of people who are not going to give you an offer. But that was a really useful, useful tool for me for getting my work out there.
Okay, let's talk about the jobs part, because we use our networks to get jobs. So I think this first part will be me and Jacoba, because we've been in the think tank world. And then the second part will be Chloe and Lucy, and Jacoba, because in the academic world. But I think for the think tank question is, how do you switch jobs to other shops while maintaining your network and mentors? So how do you switch around? I mean, DC is a relatively small town, and the number of economics positions at think tanks is not that high in total or in any one place. So how do you switch and not burn bridges? I mean, I don't know, maybe you want to burn a bridge. That's also fine. Maybe you've got an axe to grind, and I think that's okay. I mean, your network should stand by you and not the organization. So that's a pretty good hint. But I think for the most part, people are mostly really nice and supportive. And a job is a little bit like dating. You know, you have to find a place that fits with you, that you feel comfortable, that's good for you in general. And you could end up at a place where like the people is great and the work is great and they do awesome stuff, and you just like really don't want to be there. And that's okay. And most people are mature enough to understand that. Like, there can be some bad blood when you quit a place just because you leave. But again, that's like the people who don't respond to emails. Like, don't need them in your life. And that's okay. And they let you know that. So in DC, I think what can be hard is actively looking for a job while you have one. Because then it's, how do you not tip your hand to your current employer of how unhappy you are? That is a really delicate balance that requires, I think, just, you know, being upfront about needing discretion, and then also, you know, having people in your network who can help you get in touch without kind of like tipping your hand. So if you wanted to work at a place and you wanted to quit, having a mentor or someone that you know to help you put in touch with the place where you want to work without having to cold call, all of that is really helpful. I have found when looking for jobs and thinking about leaving places that if you say, I can't let my current employer know that I'm leaving, people will be very, very understanding of that. And I think for a small world like think tanks in DC, where lots of people know lots of people at all the places and half the people have worked in a different shop, you just have to make the expectations of your search really, really clear. So either they know I'm leaving and it's fine, or they don't know and I don't want to tell them until I have a place that's secure. Like that's on you to communicate. But I think that jump from one shop to another is greatly enabled by having a network that can tell you about the position.
Yeah, no, and I don't even have much to add because honestly, Catherine, what you said was exactly spot on. But I will say, I agree. I've switched a lot of jobs. It was kind of bad. I've really job hopped. And sure, are there people who probably think that I'm crazy? Sure, but they're not in my life, so I don't care. Like, it's not this thing where like I'm talking to these people every day, or I need them in some kind of way, or they need me. So it doesn't really matter to me. But for the most part, honestly, I think everyone has been understanding. Every job that I've left, understood why, and I was being very honest. It was never, I always did good work. And so they knew that I was a good worker. They just knew that I had another opportunity. And I think that for me, I try to be very transparent with people whenever I do leave jobs, to say why I'm leaving, if it's good or bad, whatever it is, because I've left for both reasons. But one thing I would say too is that what I was not doing, if I'm being honest, so this is what I probably should add, I was not asking my network about each job that I was applying to until I applied to AU, and that was a problem. And I say that because everywhere wasn't a fit for different reasons, all right, some good, some bad. And then finally, I had to talk to one of my mentors. It was like, something's not right. Like, I keep switching. I'm going to look like the problem now. Like, this is the common denominator. Something's not right. And when I finally started talking to my mentor, they knew each issue I was going to have at every job. And then when this job came available, they said, you need to apply to AU because you're actually going to love AU. That is the perfect job for you. And so for me, I think that instead of being worried about burning bridges, if you believe in God, the universe, trees, whatever you believe in, I don't really care. But the point is that understand that the universe has your back. So you're not going to burn any bridges because what is for you is going to be for you. So if something is better, it's better. Leave with grace. Don't be disrespectful. Still do good work while you're there. And nothing else matters. And so that's just how I feel.
Yeah. I mean, it applies for think tanks. This is a great segue to academic as well, of how you leave a department when everyone in your department knows everyone at the department that you want to go to. But I mean, use your network to your advantage for information. And that's something that are not going to put on the job posting, like, we're actually all kind of pretty cold here. It's not a really warm environment. Like, they're not going to put on the job posting, or like, actually no one's come into the office for 3 years and no one wants to. This is for you. Like, you need to use your network to find out what's not in the job posting and put it and get it, even if it's just like the director of this research area just does not value this type of research, and everyone who's hired in that area quits. Like, they're not going to put that in the job posting. So whatever is not in the job posting is something that you need to find out, and your network can help you do that. And I would imagine that in academia, I don't know, but Lucy, Chloe, I would imagine that's also a problem there.
I mean, what I would say is that if you're not happy at your job, whatever job it is, you should find a job that makes you happy. Life is too short to take a job that makes you miserable. The other thing I would say is that all departments have their own quirks and their own things that are a little weird. And, many departments, if you were thinking about academia, many departments have at least one person who's problematic in some way. And because of the way academics works, if that person has tenure, they're not going anywhere. So trying to figure out like what aspects of a job can you live with, can you avoid, what aspects of the job can you not live with? I think if you are thinking about switching a job or taking a job, if you can talk to someone who has left the place that you're thinking about going to, that is like keeping in mind that they left. So they're telling you something about how they felt, but trying to understand why they left, trying to get some inside scoop on what the issues might be. Because I think it's really easy to sort of come into a department and kind of be blindsided by some of the the things that they don't let show while you're on your campus visit. So trying to sort of get a sense and use people that you know, or if you don't know someone who was in the department before, like asking one of your contacts to connect you to someone so that you can get some of that inside scoop is actually really helpful before you make a move, because multiple moves are kind of draining and exhausting. You want to try to suss out the red flags before you actually make that change.
Yeah, absolutely. I have not changed jobs, so I can't really speak to this too much, other than saying that my department is very supportive of us being successful, and part of us being successful is thinking about other job opportunities and looking at what's out there. So it's not always a bad situation to look for another job. We are very open with each other within the department about who's on the market, and we have conversations about it. So there is that flip side of it too. And then the other thing is that I used my network to get this visiting position that I have right now. So thinking about, even if you're not looking to switch jobs, but you just want a new experience, even not on sabbatical, but you just want to try some different kind of work or something, taking advantage of the networks and having the networks to begin with is super useful. I had wanted to get into policy work for a while, and was emailing my advisors about, how do I do this? People who I think have been successful at getting into policy work, and they said it's like anything else. You're using your networks to figure out who you might know, who might be interested in your work, and bring you in to do more policy work. So it's been really helpful for me for doing this sabbatical and doing more policy work.
All right, we're at the 35-minute mark, so I do want to open it up for questions. So while I assume everyone is typing furiously to get their question first into the chat, and that the chat is filling up with questions as we speak, because everybody is asking a question and they're not going to be too shy about it. I think one question that's common from all of us is, how did your relationship with your PhD committee evolve after you left school? So this is really your first set of formal mentors in a lot of way. They wrote letters for you, you defended in front of them, but they can't be, they can't be your committee in the same role in the same way for your entire career. So how did it evolve? Were there some you never spoke to again? Were there some you kept in touch with that you became friends with? Lucy, since you're the farthest from your committee, I'm so curious how many of them you talked to and for how long.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. I had a terrific committee. I really did have that sort of portfolio of mentors. My dissertation chair was Becky Blank, who was amazing, passed away last year from cancer. But Becky went into like serious, government work and then serious administration work pretty quickly after I had left, right? So she wasn't someone I talked to on a regular basis. I think pretty early on, I was finding mentors that were more horizontal to me and not so much relying on my committee. But to be honest, I think that's because I think it's part of the first gen thing. I think I could have used my committee members and used it. I don't mean in that sense, like using them. I don't know if I'm articulating myself clearly at all, but I think I should have, in retrospect, worked harder to maintain connections and get more advice from them along the way. And in the same way, as an undergrad, I didn't go to office hours because I didn't really understand what they were. I think I didn't use those connections as much as I could have moving forward.
Okay, we'll do quick. Chloe, how's your relationship with your committee changed since you've left? You've been out 6 years or 7?
7. Yeah, I've been out 7. I have kept pretty close contact with 2 of them. So one of them I was co-authoring with when I left grad school. So that was actually honestly fantastic, not just because it was great to co-author with them, but to have that sort of like constant contact and being able to just ask whatever questions are coming up. My first year, especially as an assistant professor, when I had no idea what I was doing. And So that was really useful, but I still, even separate from that, have been really intentional about keeping in contact with my, well, I guess actually two of my other advisors, one from undergrad and one from grad. And reaching out to them regularly when I have like big updates, like when I was going on sabbatical and when I got tenure and all that stuff. But also still feeling like I can use them as a resource when questions are coming up. So I think, you know, because I was in contact with them and seeing them at conferences and emailing them every once in a while, it feels easy and more natural to say, like, I'm really running into this kind of complicated problem and I don't really know what to do. I just need some advice. And, you know, I'm lucky to have good advisors who are very responsive to those emails. But that's something that's been super helpful and that I still, you know, maintain now, even 7 years out.
Jacoba, how's your committee?
I had 3 people on my committee, 2 I never spoke to again after I defended, just never saw them again. Yeah, so I couldn't tell you what's going on. And my advisor, I've been on for 5 years. I'll probably talk to him twice, maybe. So really, I mean, no contact. But I mean, if I needed to reach out to my advisor for letters and stuff, he would do it. I know he would. We just, yeah, minimal contact.
Well, I mean, I'm glad for the people here that they can see that there's a diversity of experiences. I think I've kept in like reasonable touch with my committee. Definitely my advisor, I've kept in touch with more, but I send professional updates like they're my parents. Like, hey guys, big day for me. Hope you're proud. But I had kind of like a committee in flux about like who was on it. And so some of them I keep in closer touch with than others. Okay, but I wouldn't say that I've been very close with all of them, but some of them more than others. All right, Lois, what's your question?
Yes, thank you. I'm Lois Miller. I'm a PhD student at UW-Madison, and I'm on the job market this year, which I feel like I need to say in every introduction. But my question is about like, there's kind of, we talked about this earlier, there's like these 2 different sides to networking. One is like friends to be social with, and the other is like people who are going to help you get jobs. And often those kind of overlap. And I've sometimes felt like, I don't know, I feel a little bit weird about those things overlapping. And then like when I'm interacting with people, kind of thinking about like, oh, is this like, am I being like fake because I'm trying to use them to get a job, but I really do like them and like talking to them. So I'm not sure exactly what the question is, but kind of just like, how do you balance those 2 things and like meeting people that you might really just want to talk to, but you also want to use them for professional connection in the future?
I mean, I would say just imagine that we were regular people who had jobs and had an office. And sometimes there are people in your office that you talk to and you're like, hey, we might actually get a drink after work. And other people, you would never do that, but you get lunch together and you can still use them for like when would you ask a friend for help? You know, when would someone you ask for help become a friend? You don't have to know. You don't have to put people in like a bucket of like, this is a friend's network. You know, this is the professional network. You know, people can blend between them, and you know, I would not stress too much about it. Just pretend you're at the water cooler, you know, and you wouldn't ask a personal question too loudly unless apparently you were Jacoba or myself. but I wouldn't put too much pressure on it. Like, things develop naturally, and sometimes you can be like just really chummy with a person and have never talked to them about career stuff. It's just another economist who you've met, who you've jived with. Or there could be an economist where it's like we've only ever talked about professional stuff. Like, she might not even know that I have a husband or children, right? Like it really varies, and there's no wrong way to do it. Just when you're comfortable, you're comfortable. When you're not, you're not.
And I think the ideal situation for me is to have like a mix of people. And this goes back to Jacoba's point about community, right? So like, I feel very lucky that I have co-authors that I consider my friends. And that, like, for me, that's kind of the best co-authoring relationship, when you're working with people that you actually just like hanging out with as well. But then there's people that, you know, I'm friendly with that are doing work that's totally different than mine. There's people that are doing work that's very similar to mine that I don't think I would necessarily want to go get a beer with. So I think there's really like the whole spectrum. So I think I agree with Catherine to not overthink it, and just, you know, make those connections where you can, and you'll know like who are the people that make you feel good about yourself and your work, and those are the people you want to gravitate to and spend more time with.
Yeah, your squad. You just find your squad. Yeah. Okay, Taylor.
Hi. So I those were great answers, and my question was kind of connecting to that. Because I'm still in undergrad. I'm a very non-traditional student. I'm coming up on 30 and I'm single mom, kid, so it's hard for me to kind of connect with the people that I do come across as potential mentors. Because I don't think they really get the level that I'm on, and that, you know, I'm not in a position where I can graduate and go straight to a master's program or anything like that. Like, I need to get out and find work. So I guess my question is kind of like, can I use like LinkedIn and stuff like that to try to start building a network? Because I've gotten really mixed reviews on whether or not that's like an appropriate way to approach people that you don't know, but you know that they're doing the stuff that you want to do. And so I don't know. I hope that's not a weird question. But that's what I got.
So I'm going to jump in on that. First of all, Taylor, we should talk offline because I did both my undergraduate and graduate degrees as a single mom. So we should talk. So email me offline, please, so we can have that conversation. I think that there's lots of options for you in terms of trying to find the kinds of jobs that you might want to do, and also to think about grad school if that's something that you want to do. It's feasible. So, you know, I think having conversations with people in APPAM about the types of work that you might want to do, having conversations with your advisors about the kinds of work you want to do. You want to sort of see what options are out there and what options are going to make sense for you and your family. And I think that there's lots of resources for you in terms of doing that.
Taylor, you're doing amazing. You're just want to all of this is hard, and it's harder when you feel like you're not like anybody else, but you're doing amazing. You're doing the right thing for yourself and your family, and you're much less alone. I think the thing I would say about networking is whether or not you'd catch more fish with a hook or a net. Right? When you're by yourself and there's just one line in the water, there's only so much you're going to be able to do. Your network is just a net that gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you'll be able to catch more. So don't like make your world smaller just because you feel alone, because you're not alone and your world could be really big. Okay, I think Zoe was next.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for sharing all of your experiences. I've already learned a lot. I have also kind of a specific niche question sort of related to Taylor's, which is just about sort of the formality of mentorship is intimidating to me. And I have had lots of people like in my career and in my, I guess, economically speaking, non-traditional path. I ended up going to grad school for social work because I felt like that was a better fit for me as a policy social worker rather than doing an MPA or an MPP or anything like that. But that's left me with a lot of networking opportunities that are very clinical heavy, which is not where I land, which is one of the reasons why I found APPAM, and I'm glad that I'm here, but I also am not explicitly an economist. So I feel like I'm in this challenging intermediate space where sometimes I have trouble defining myself, and also I'm not sure what sort of outreach to do. Besides, I will also plug LinkedIn. Definitely reach out to people that you think are cool on LinkedIn. I got a job interview from cold messaging someone that I had one connection with once. It's worth it. But I live in an area where there's not many people that do the work that I do, and I'm interested in building relationships with people who are further along in their careers, but I'm just not sure how to approach that conversation in a way that doesn't feel weird.
So a quick clarifying, are you a PhD student or a master's student?
I'm not. I finished my master's 2 years ago. I'm not currently pursuing a PhD.
Okay, but you have a job right now.
Yes.
Okay, great. I just thought that detail was
Yeah,
helpful.
no, I have a job right now and it's been great. I've been building a network in a place that I didn't have one before because of that job, but the like mentorship conversation feels very intimidating to me.
So I would say it often comes down to what it is you need a mentor for, and you can work backwards from the need as opposed, or you can work forward from the person. Like, I think Lucy's awesome. I don't know how I'm going to need Lucy. I just need her in my life as an informal mentor to email when I can, versus like I needed a letter writer for a specific situation and I had to find a letter writer and like meet that need. And so I think, mentoring and networking, they go in both directions of like, yeah, I need someone to do this versus, as in this, and everyone should feel this way. I just need Lucy in my life, right? Like it's both the person or the task. And so for you, it might be helpful to like split them out and say, I just want a mentor who can talk to me about grad school. Well, you can zero in on that, and find someone versus like, I need someone who can help me figure out what my next job would be, right? That's a separate path. So think about what you need and then work backwards to find the person. And it might take you a few tries, but you'll get a hit.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's kind of like what Lucy was saying at the very beginning, that there's, you can have kind of a large group of people that serve different purposes and not thinking that one or two people are going to serve all purposes and have exactly the same, set of interests and background as you. Because that, you can get that from lots of people.
All right, so Lavanya's next in the questions, but we had one in the chat that came up first, which is for Jacova. How are you navigating and growing your network and mentoring community with other scholars, especially economists, doing work on racism?
Oh, that's actually a really good question. So I would say that it's not that big of a network, if I'm being honest. There's not that many economists in general that talk about racism. And if I'm being too honest, even if they do talk about race, it's in a very racist way. It's in a very like racial disparity, some kind of way. Black people are here. We don't know how they got there. And I'm very big on like, no, let's talk about how they got there and like what's keeping that going. So again, I'm very direct if you can't tell. But what I would say is that when you talk about stuff like racism and stuff that is like those touchy subjects, you get to learn who's down for you and who's not real quick. And so, I mean, it's kind of beautiful to some extent. You get to see who the snakes are really easily. There are a lot of people that are doing it more than you would think. And I would say because it's so few of us, even though I'm saying it's more than what you think, it's a lot. We find each other real quickly. You already know who your referees are going to be, right? Because there's only a few people who actually know about the topic, which is a good thing as well. Usually that means that you're going to have a lot of people to co-author with, because again, it's a small niche of people that actually do this work and do it at a really good quality. But it actually hasn't to me been difficult at all. And I say that because again, for the few people that do it, we quickly find out who's writing about this, whose dissertation is on it, because I'm probably going to referee your paper. So immediately I know, and then we also have like associations for it. Even right now, I'm going to present this Friday, to plug that, the National Economic Association, which is an association for Black economists. I'm presenting a paper on racism, right? And so like, again, I'm very big on whenever I present, I'm presenting to a certain audience who cares about racism. That means that I'm going to grow my network, because everyone in there is actually really interested in me doing high quality work, because they know it's at such high stakes. And I don't want to ramble, but it does at such high stakes that they are going to make sure that the work is high quality as well.
Okay, Monique, if you have follow-up, please put it in the chat or email Jacova directly. It kind of sounds like you guys should be friends, just saying. All right, Lavanya.
Yeah, please do. I'm sorry. Yes, please.
Hi, I have similar kind of question, not exactly, but kind of similar, I think. But the thing is, the work I do, it's not really like my advisors advise me, but they are not experts in those field. So I kind of find myself in a very weird situation where I really don't have people working in my field around me. So I feel lonely, I feel out of place. So I really don't know how to really navigate through that. I mean, I'm I go to conferences, I meet people, but then it kind of falls apart again, and then I find myself again in this zone. So I didn't introduce myself, sorry. I'm a PhD candidate at Middle Tennessee State University, and I work on energy economics. But my department doesn't specialize in it. But I do it because I like doing it, and even though there's nobody really there to expert in my field. So I really don't know how to navigate through that and how to find a network of people working in my field.
So
I'm gonna jump. Okay,
you're
go ahead.
you go first.
Oh yeah, no, and I'll go real quick because you're not gonna ramble. But no, I'll just say real quick. That's actually one of the reasons why I don't talk to my committee. It's not like beef. It's just literally like we do different things. I kind of had these weird ideas about racism, and they were like, "Go ahead and do it." We don't know how to do any of that. But for me, I was so passionate about it. What I did was literally, again, I got a fellowship, and for me, it was more or less like I need to still have the econometric skills. So what I did was I literally got a mentor who still is not really necessarily an expert on racism or anything related, but he has really good econometric skills. So for me, I still like read different papers of different economists that's out there. I've cold emailed people. I've submitted papers, and usually what has happened for me is that anytime I submit a paper, that's how my network grows. Anytime I present, it's me actually being at the front. And what I mean by it is, if you're sitting in an audience, it is a different thing than you actually talking to the audience. So I would encourage you, I know I keep saying this, but I would really encourage you to present at conferences and to make sure that you stay in contact with these people as well, because they're busy, like I am as well. Like I would love to mentor everyone, but it's one of those things where I can't think of everyone who wants to talk to me. But if you email me, hey, let's have coffee, let's have a Zoom conversation, whatever it is. So make sure when you're getting those contact information, send them another email to say like, hey, remember we talked about I have a question about whatever. But the person doesn't necessarily have to be in your field. If you are an applied person, they do need to have strong econometric skills. So what I've kind of done is have like a network of strong econometricians, but then people who are strong in like the field of racism, and kind of marry the two things together.
So
none of them are at LSU. None of them came from my department. I want to be very clear about that. Yeah.
So this is a great way to talk about how I met Chloe, which is I was at a very good economics department, but did not really have an advisor who did what I did. And so I went to UC Davis for a semester because there was faculty there who I thought that I would jive with. And Chloe's one of the students there. And I hung out with them for a semester, and I made, my first like econ squad was, half Davis students where I didn't go to school, because I had such an intellectual crush on Marianne Page. And I was like, I just want to meet her. I want to talk to her. And then I got to work with her for a semester and meet her students and kind of be plugged in there. So like a lot of us end up in school and didn't realize on the front end that we might have been in a department that wasn't the best fit. So like go find a department that's fit, like go hang out there, go there for a summer, go there for a fellowship, or just get out of school as fast as humanly possible and then get a job that you like. Because the answer is never stay in school for 15 years. Like that, just either go somewhere for a little bit or like get out would be my advice. Granted, I'm not in academia, so I don't know how that's going to work. If you want
The thing that I would add to what everyone else has already said, and this builds off of what Jacoba was saying about presenting in front of people, what you really want to do is you want to present. The Southerns are a fantastic conference for doing this, but you don't want to send your paper on its own to the Southerns, because you'll end up in a session that may only very loosely be related to things that you do. So you want to organize a session for next year's Southerns where you have picked people who you want to engage with intellectually. You want your paper in there, you want other papers in there. That's how, and then you follow up with those people after the conference, and that's how you find that group. Especially if you don't have the ability to go someplace else for a semester, right? Like that's the kind of thing that you can do.
So the last question, and we only have a couple minutes left, is Camilla asked in the chat, I often find myself not knowing how to prepare when meeting with seminar speakers one-on-one, and what are some helpful strategies to use these short meetings to grow my network? I would kind of expand this to like any one-on-one meeting at a conference, at a seminar, when they're in your house, when you're in their house, of like you're meeting with someone one-on-one who could be part of your network or mentoring kind of community. Chloe, what would you say? I'm just
yeah, no, please. I always prepare a little thing about my current research. Like, what is the thing that I'm most excited about? And then presumably you're going to be more junior than the people that you're meeting with for people in this session. And so they're going to want you to do the talking. Like they want to hear about what you're doing. And so you should have that prepped and ready to go. And then the other thing that I do is I always look at people's CVs ahead of time and sort of pick out like one or two things that like I can ask them about if they're doing some project that's related to a project that I'm working on, or they've gotten a grant that I'm interested in applying for. I always sort of come up with a couple of questions to ask the other person as well.
And can I just piggyback? Totally agree with everything Chloe said. Also, it's totally fine to not talk about research. Like, so I think that it's always good to talk about research to start that way. But one thing to know as well, at least for me, and maybe I'm just a weird person, you know, whenever you get flown out, it's a beautiful thing. It's nice. Everyone's great. But it's a long day. It's a very long day. And all you're doing is talking about research. So I really value whenever I do go to a campus and I can talk to someone like maybe for 5 minutes about my research or 5 minutes about their research. And then we can talk about something else that we have in common. And that could be like literally food. It could literally be sports. It could literally be, I don't know, I'm making up stuff, like whatever. But that also helps me just because I don't want to talk about research for 8 hours. And to be honest, that's what it is to some extent. And so I'm just saying to say, I think that I always prepare something. I do. I prepare 1 or 2 things about the person that I may want to talk about. But I rarely talk about for like 30 minutes. I rarely talk about research. It's definitely going to go off track. And I can always tell that the person always values it because they're also tired. But no one's going to say that, if I'm being honest. Yeah.
The one last thing to sort of piggyback on that is my go-to if I like get stuck talking to someone and I wasn't prepared to talk to them in advance is to ask them, what are you working on right now that you're super excited about? Because that always works and it doesn't require any prep. So I'm not saying you shouldn't prep, but that's always a good fallback option.
This might be a good time in our last minute to plug that we're going to have an in-person meetup at the APPAM conference this fall for those of you who will be there. I'm trying to find when it is right now, but I don't have it off the top of my head.
Definitely happening. Chloe and I will be
Yeah.
there. We hosted an informal session in DC last year where we did basic open question answers. So we, please
Okay,
come.
it is 1:45 p.m. Thursday, November 9th, and it's also on the program, so you can check it out there. Yeah, it was great last year. It was awesome to see everybody in person, so we'd love to see you all there. And this was a fantastic conversation. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and Lucy and Jacova for giving your wisdom and advice to everybody.
Yeah, thank you all so much, and thank you guys who came, and I look forward for more webinars from Chloe and I about just various topics. I think the next one might be on work-life balance, or it'll be on like branding in the media. We haven't really decided yet. We have a lot of fun topics we can't wait to talk to anyone about. So cheers, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you all.
Can I